Alright, this video is about selecting the top and starting the build of a new workbench for my shop. Now, a couple months ago I told you that I had my shop all torn apart, and this is the reason why. It's time to replace this old workbench that basically was just a piece of 3/4 inch plywood on top of some old Craftsman cabinets that I've been using for quite some time now. Trouble was, it's not flat. The plywood has sagged and warped, and there's no way to clamp anything to it or square up items. So I've been using my table saw to assemble on for quite some time now, and you see most of it. I do that because I want my projects to come out flat. So definitely time to get a much better workbench. And first thing I decided to do was to just take this one and cut the top in half and create two sets of cabinets that I'm going to move over against the wall, because I really need the drawer space for storage of tools and stuff. So I kind of cut it up and took it apart, and I've been moving everything in my shop around just to to make room for this bench and make room for more machinery. So this is basically what I've been up to the last couple of months in my spare time. And I bought these Craftsman cabinets, oh god, at least 20 years ago. I think I paid about $60 a piece for the 10 drawer cabinets here, and there's how the four of them, I had them bolted together and I pulled them apart, and actually there were some things I've been missing for years under the bench there. But you can see, I had to take the drawers out and stuff to move things and set them up in different areas. And I'm moving one set of them over in the corner here, and had to take out some other cabinets that held my paint, stuff like that. So, I'm rearranging all that, and hopefully I'll have an update video on the shop soon. And, there's a new shelving rack that went in. Well, I ordered some tops, and there's the UPS delivery truck right there. It turned out that UPS is using private drivers because they're overloaded. And that poor woman had two of these tops sitting in the car, and she had to unload the whole car to get at them because they're on the bottom. So these are the tops that I chose. I decided to go this way because I wanted to make sure that I had a good flat top to start out with, and I actually wanted a way to clamp on them and stuff. And a subscriber had told me about this company, Armor Tools, that makes clamps and stuff like that, and I checked out their website, and I actually found these tops on it. And there you can see UPS still manages to put gouges in it and stuff. Luckily these were really packaged good, but I'll show you, there still was a little bit of damage, but not much. But I checked out the website and I signed up, and they sent me a coupon for like a 20% discount, and I got these for a really good deal with free shipping on them. And there was no way I could have bought the lumber to make them because I'm out of hard maple now. So this is what they look like. They're a 25-inch by 54-inch workbench top with dog holes in it, placed every 3 inches. You can see they were really well packaged, and a couple nicks and dents from UPS, but they came from California, so you got to figure it. And you can see they're perfectly flat in that direction, which was really the reason I went with purchase units. Now there is a slight warp in this one. You can see I can rock a little bit in that direction, but I'll show you. I was able to pull that out later. So they are really, really nice tops for the price, I think, and having the dog holes in them and everything really is going to help speed things up here. No way I could have accurately placed these holes. So that's the first one, and here's the second one here. Same thing, well packaged. Couple little nicks and dents in them from UPS and where they damaged the box and stuff, but nothing major, because I'll be beating on these with a hammer over time anyway. And it was one spot there where they had messed up with the stain or something on a couple inches of the end, but it's all flat and everything, nothing. And it's just small strips of hard maple put together, one ding from UPS again. And let's check it for flatness, and this one's actually perfectly flat in both directions, I found out. So, I think I made the right choice with these, and just some pretty amazing clamps that this company sells that I plan on getting later to work with these. So I just popped them on top of each other, upside down, checked. The holes lined up good. They were slightly off center from the top itself, though. And they were all nice and square and stuff like that. So I just clamped them together for about 2 weeks, and actually both of them came out flat at the end. Now it's time to go down in the barn and pick out some lumber for it. And again, this is some ash that I had sawn. This was a couple planks that I had put away years ago, and there's one more big one I brought out. But I had cut this specifically for building a workbench from, so a couple of years ago, and now it's pretty dry. It's actually at about 9.5% moisture content, and I doubt it'll go any lower this time of the year. So I'm gonna work with this. And this video is pretty much just showing me starting to break it down into the parts and stuff. These bit larger, thicker slabs actually are quite heavy to work with. So you want to try to break them down as close to the actual size you're going to need in the end. And the bandsaw is a good way to do that. And it helps to really get the things as close to the finished size, especially when you only have an 8-inch joiner. So this makes it easier for joining it and stuff. So as always, I'm going to start by taking all the pieces over to the joiner and start flattening them. And when you cut wood or slabs that are this thick, they do have a tendency as they dry to twist a little bit and warp a little bit. So this is really a step that you can't pass. So once I get one good flat edge on it, and there you can see that dust sensor is still working good. I'm happy with that. So I got one good flat edge, and then I decided to bring everything down to be parallel and take several passes of the planer, just because they're all different thicknesses and stuff slightly to start out with. So you have to start with the worst case, and with a helical head you can only take off a 1/16 at a time, which really kind of stinks, because my old blade type planer I could take almost a 1/4 inch at a pass and level stuff out like this. But so it's just slow process going through getting the two sides parallel, and I actually planed these down to a little bit over 2 inches in thickness too. They were about 2 1/4, so there was quite a bit of material to take off, but not enough for me to really resaw and reuse. And then I'm going to go back and just square up one edge there to make sure you have a nice straight square edge on there to work from. And again, I'd like to do a couple light passes just in case anything moves and it flattens out. And it's over to the table saw on either 2 to 2 1/8 inch thick pieces, and you can see that 5 horsepower saw just cuts it like butter. And I can't believe the Amana blade, that 40-tooth blade. This is the one I bought a couple years ago, and it's been through a lot of hard use. I had a tooth that I chipped off of it with a hardened Craig screw, and I just filed it down a little bit with a diamond file to get rid of the nick, and this thing still cuts great. It's just been an amazing blade. It's the only blade I use on the saw, basically. So you can see it does a really nice job. And I'm just starting to bring these down to the actual finished size now. Now, I don't actually ever work with any plans. I just kind of work with the lumber that I have to determine the sizes and stuff. So a lot of people ask, well, you're going to have a plan or anything like that, and I really don't. I'm not going to waste my time on one. So then it's over to to this miter jig, and since I put this Craig extrusion on this Incra jig, it's worked good. And I did have to slide the extrusion down to because I was cutting so thick, so I wanted to go back and just check square on everything on the first cut to make sure it was still all lined and everything's good. And time to start cutting the length down. And with this sliding table on there, this is about the maximum thickness that you really want to cut with the saw. And then there again, there's that 40-tooth Amana blade. Pretty amazing how nice that still cuts after a couple of years of use. No cleaning, no sharpening, nothing. It's still cutting good. I'm just going to go through now and just finish, cutting everything to rough length. Some will be cut to perfect size and some will be oversized right now. But, it's all the stock is nice, flat, square now. So, I'm ready to go on to the next step once I do get this cut down. Yeah, you can see I've got that little safety guard I added later on that jig also. So once I got them cut to size, it's time to start cutting the tenons on the ends of the couple of the parts. Now for this, I just set up the dado head, and I only set it up at 3/4 inch worth of blades on there, so I've got to shift the part a couple times. And you can see I pretty much just put a stop block to start off of on each cut so that they're all in line. And this is the reason why I mounted that Incra jig over to the left hand side of the blade. That way I'm always indexed against the arbor, and I like to use it a lot for cutting my mortises, my tenons here, and for mortise and tenon joinery. So that's why I did this. I don't have to take any cuts out of the main table or anything, and I can just change whatever blade I want no matter what thickness it is, and still not damage the original the main sled. So this is a infinity miter set that I bought years ago too, and it does do a wonderful job on all these cuts like this. So there's the first end of the first part, and now it's just time to go back. Once you see everything perfect on the first one and square, and the blocks are all set right, it's a quick job to go back and do the 3 matching parts for the front side of the bench. So this is just more repetitive. It's kind of fun though to watch them watch how they evolve. And I've been wanting a new bench for years now, and I never really knew what it was going to be or what it was going to look like. So this is really fun to be designing and building now, and just kind of putting together what I feel is a perfect bench for my needs. So you notice on this cut here that there's no sawdust coming out from the dado head like that first one, because I did remember to turn on the dust collector. So that does help a lot, because these blades do make a lot of sawdust. So then I've got the front side legs going down, and you can see they're wide and flat, and there's going to be tenons, mortises cut into them, and those tenons are going to go into the mortises. And first thing I did is lay out the location of everything, and then I decided to put a bunch of dog holes and taps in the front of each leg, so I can have a place actually to clamp things like doors if you want to cut them down, or I'll be able to make up different fixtures and stuff, and I'll actually have a good way to clamp things vertical when you want to work on them. So this did take a while, drilling about 50 3/4 inch holes in the uprights, and I just took a Forstner bit and went slow. You had to drill 2-inch ash. It does take some time though. Now I'll speed it up here a little bit, and you can see I pretty much have a 3-inch pattern with an offset 3-inch pattern to match the bench top. So now I got the dog holes drilled, and it's time to go back and drill the holes for the taps. And then once I got that done, I went back and put that big Beal tool countersink in there, and went back and just countersunk all the holes so there'd be no splinters, no sharp edges, and the taps would have no problem starting. So I did this on both sides of each hole, and it does take a little while, but it's a step that's worth doing. Then it's time to start threading the holes, and there you can see I did one before I took the video, and that's just a piece of threaded wood that I made. So now I'm going to go through and thread that outer row of holes on each of these legs. And this is actually the tap, even with wax on it. I put a wax on it when machining wax on it, and even with that, it is quite a tough thing to turn, this 1-inch tap. You do really feel it if you got any arthritis in your wrists, I can tell you that much. So you just have to go through and each one I tap it through, and then I have to remove the tap from the handle because you can't back it out, and then start the next one. So I feel it'll be worthwhile having these a place to screw in some wooden clamps and stuff like that. Then it's time to break down some more lumber for the stretchers that run front to back there. So this was a little bit thicker than what I actually needed. I needed these to be 1 3/4 inch thick, so they'd fit between the dog holes, no problem. And over to the bandsaw and just do a little bit of resawing. And I will say that it would be nice if this Laguna bandsaw had a little more horsepower. I just don't believe that it's 3 horsepower, because you can easily stop it with when you're resawing ash like this. And this is nothing compared to its capacity. But anyhow, if you go slow, I'm able to get it broken down. And then I've got some more big pieces for the legs here, and I'm going to use that Evolution miter saw. And this thing, it's amazing the capacity that this thing has. It'll cut as much as my old 12-inch DeWalt would, and it does a really good job at it. So, I got the back legs actually started now, and these are just going to be some 3x3 ash. And same thing, there's some twist in these parts from drying, you can see, and I'm just going to make a couple of trips over the joiner here to get that nice and flat. And usually when you're cutting around the pith, you will get some twist and stuff out of these center planks that come out. But once they're dry and you plane them flat, they do stay nice and flat over time, so that's the biggest problem. So there's the legs now. They're all sized up and squared up and ready to go. And I did get a couple bins out of that Dust Deputy, and there's what I got out of the filter after 3 55-gallon barrels full. This thing is just amazing. It's so much more efficient than that other Grizzly Growler thing that I had. So everything's working good with that now. I'm real happy with that unit. The filter's not getting plugged, and the level sensor seems to be working really good so far. So I'm just gonna continue testing that for a little while, and then I'll try to post a schematic once I'm sure everything's good on it. So now it's time to go back on the saw and rip down some stock. And again, you can see that 42 amount of blades, just amazing. Just did a really good job. It's some paper thin piece that I had to rip off one of them, and it came out perfect. Now UPS just arrived, and I saw these Armor Tool double extrusions when I ordered the tops, and I knew I was going to use them. I wanted to incorporate them in the top, and I ordered a couple of these off of Amazon, and I got them in a couple days. And this is what they look like. They come with a couple of T-bolts, but basically you bolt them from both sides, unlike those regular extrusions that you just use screws and they can come loose and pull things out. I decided I was going to go with these because I want to use them to actually hide that gap in the middle between the two tops and actually lock the two tops together perfectly flat. At the same time, I bought some rubber vibration pads to put on the bottom of the legs here. Really super stiff rubber, but I want to isolate the legs from the cement floor. So now these extrusions, I wound up going with two 3-foot ones because they don't make a 54-inch one. And I decided I could cut what I needed out of them, but I set the router to be 1/64th of an inch deeper than the thickness of that. And then I referenced off the peg holes, a piece that would give me the proper setback. And the actual dog holes in both tops were slightly offset from one edge, and they're pretty much the same on both tops, so I had to make sure that I oriented them right so I'd have a perfectly square pattern when I was done. And then I went back with the router and I did multiple passes. I did like 3 passes, cutting a little bit at a time. And you can see I'm referenced off all those dog holes there so that I know that when the two go together, the dog holes will be perfectly parallel. And I left about a 32nd of an inch gap between the two tops when they go together. So there it is. I did one pass, and then I went back, did a couple more passes to get it down to the final depth, and that's real easy using the plunge router. So there it is, and that's actually just a little bit less than half of the thing. It's a 64th deeper than the track thickness, and that's what I'm going to use to line my two tabletops and actually kind of hide the gap, and at the same time give me a way to use T-track hardware in this also. So once I got the first top done and checked all the dimensions, I went over and I did the same thing on the second one. And again, you want to make sure that they're oriented so that all the dog holes come out perfectly in line. And same thing on machining. I've got that spacer on the dog holes just to make sure that everything is perfectly parallel when done. So there's what it looks like. Got the two grooves cut, and I'm actually I've got about 32nd of an inch gap between them to pull everything tight. And you can see the track fits in there perfect, and gonna really complete the bench and hide all the gap. It would be nice if Armor Tool made a 54-inch one to match this, but I had to use 2 pieces, and there you can see I can actually even use that Incra clamp now. So any kind of T-track stuff will work on this. So it looks like everything's gonna work now, and I decided to start cutting the track, seeing how it was gonna be 2 pieces, and I just did this on the table saw. I had it all set up, and I figured it would give me the most perfect matching joint in the middle. And I made sure that everything came out so that all the little slots were centered and stuff. And cut the first one there, and I didn't really like the raw aluminum on the edge. I was trying to figure out how to paint it, and then all of a sudden I grabbed a red Sharpie that I had laying in my shop, and I went over the edge of it. I put 2 coats on, and it's like a perfect match for the extrusion. You can see I filed a little radius on there to match the bench top. But once I got done with that, you really could not notice that. There it is there. That it wasn't anodized on the end. So, that's a good tip if you're going to cut these things and you want it to look factory. So then I took a short cut off. I had to get it so that my holes were centered because it's between 2 tops. So I took this short cut off. I got everything lined up, and I took and I clamped it in the groove there, and I put a hole in the center of it to use as a guide hole for my drill bit. And that let me put the mounting holes for the bolts like right down the center of those 2 parts. So I marked them out. I went 6 inches on center for each of them, and pretty much just, you can see I marked them out with a Sharpie, and I'm going to be drilling them all, but that's how it goes in. You put the bolt down head in there, and they'll drop down through and pull it together. A big fender washer on the back, and I'm actually going to make plates to put a couple of screws to hold the tops together also. So I'm not actually going to glue these tops together. So once I see it works through the first one, I'm going to go through and clamp it in and drill all the rest of them now. And it was a good way to get the hole perfectly centered in the 2 of them. Went through and drilled all the holes, and then it's time to put some bolts in and install the first part. And there you can see they go slide right in the T-track. This stuff is just so awesome for stuff like this. It's strong and it'll never come out. Screws will never pull out, and it actually does a really wonderful job of pulling things together. So I got that lined up perfectly on the side there. And I, like I said, I'm going to make some bigger washers for here with a couple screw holes, so I could actually put a couple screws up from the bottom too. But you know, it does pull the top really perfectly flat and everything. So then once I had the first piece in, I went back and cut down the mating piece to fill out the 54 inches. Same thing, I measured really carefully so I'd come out with a you know, a perfect fit. And again, the raw edge was covered with red Sharpie that, you know, you really can't tell. It's not anodized anymore. And then I mounted that. And here you can see I also found out that I can use carriage bolts to hold this down with a little bit of filing on each side of them. Or just 1/4-20 hardware will go in there, or the 5/16 T-bolts that are supplied with it. So, you know, it's a great way to put a T-track in an item. You can see everything's really pulled perfectly flat. You see my straight edge there. And I got it so that all those dog holes are basically perfectly aligned, and you know, they're all square to each other and stuff. So this is going to be like the perfect top. And I have pretty much the other parts all roughed out, and just have to get to Home Depot and get a sheet of plywood. Now, the one thing I found out about these tops is there are different size holes in the two tops. There's the 3/4 inch dowel. It's just a hair over 3/4 inch. It's really a tight fit in the one top, and the other top is about all the holes in are about 15 thousandths diameter larger. So I'll probably just I've got everything on center there, so I'll probably just maybe run a reamer through those other ones someday. But you know, basically this is where I'm gonna let off today. I've got the tops mounted. You can see I've got a perfectly flat surface now for the top of my workbench, and you know, I think this was really the best way to go. You can see everything just pulled nice. That extrusion just fits in there, and it's going to be so handy in the long run, having that there. And all my bench dog stuff pops right in there. And next thing I'm going to be doing is, you know, getting around to doing some of the mortises and gluing up some parts. But for now, I figured I'd stop here and you know, just show you that I am working on this, and things have gotten off to a start now. Always fun to, you know, build a project, to plan ahead and store away some wood for a future project. And you know, here you can see I think this is going to be the perfect top for my needs, and it's going to, you know, be perfectly flat. It's going to have unlimited clamping abilities, and I still have a vise to mount on it, stuff like that. And going to have vertical clamping, and it's actually going to have a downdraft table built into it, and we'll do everything that I want my bench to do. So there'll be a lot of follow-up videos on this, and I thought I'd share this part first. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.